Hey everyone, welcome to TalkDeath. We are here with Alua Arthur, the founder of Going with Grace. In this video series, we talk to her about death doulas, end-of-life planning, and why it's so important. And she talks to us about how she supports families and individuals throughout this process.
To learn more about Alua, check out the article we wrote about her on TalkDeath.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TalkDeath Daily. This is where we post interesting and morbid history, art, information, and obviously funny comics.
Yeah, of course. So much of the work that you do with Going with Grace is end-of-life planning with families and with individuals, right? So can you speak to us about what end-of-life planning really entails?
Yeah. It looks like for people that have started to come into consciousness of the fact that one day they're going to die, like people that really start to become aware of it and are starting to think about it, I help them create a written and concise and comprehensive plan for how to carry out their affairs after they die. We start off with an advance directive. We talk about healthcare decision-making, who can make your decisions for you in the event that you can't. Then we talk about desires for life support. Then we talk about care and comfort, how to treat the body and how to treat them while they're still living. Little things like ambient lighting or candles or the smells you really don't like, any fabrics that feel terrible on your skin, things like that. We also then talk about body and services, how you want your body handled after you die, disposition. Then we go into a bunch of other things like dependent and pet care. We talk about your possessions. We try to figure out what to do with your sentimental possessions. We talk about all of your accounts. Where's your money? That I learned was really useful to have together before we died when I saw how hard it was after somebody died to help family members wrap up affairs. Because my work really started with helping family members after a death get all of their loved ones' affairs wrapped up. And I was like, man, if we had this little bit of information, it could support so much. And so I retrofit the document. Every single time I help a family member with something after a death, I go back and I create a new version of my end-of-life planning document to make sure that we can capture that information beforehand. So that's really what it looks like, getting very clear on not only body disposition and services, but decision-making at the end of life, and then the practical things. What do you want done with your dog? Who's going to watch your dog?
Yeah. And it's that practicality. It's taking care of all of these pieces that almost make it more peaceful if, let's say, you're the one in the dying process. And it's also easier on your family, right?
Much easier on the family. I feel like a lot of it's for the family, but for some people, creating a peaceful dying looks like having their affairs in order. You know, I talked to this one guy and he was okay with the fact that, well, I won't say okay totally, but all of his death anxiety had to do with the fact that he'd been running the household for the past 40 years that he'd been married to his wife, and that she would be left not knowing what to do. And he was like, I just need to get it all together. This is what his death anxiety was about. Not medication, not the afterlife, not living anymore, leaving his wife unable to handle the affairs in the home. So it's a big component of it, getting the practical affairs in order. And like you mentioned, it has the beautiful double benefit of relieving the burden and stress on your family afterward.
Yeah, and having what you want with your own body done, up to you as well.
Right. So many people say, oh, I don't care, I'll be dead anyway. It's like, yeah, but if you don't care, at some point somebody's going to have to.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard someone say that.
Yeah.
Just throw me in the woods, I don't care.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. Oh,
yeah. So as someone who is hired by the family to not only help put the dying person's affairs in order, but also as a death doula to, guide the dying person and guide the family through the process, Cadaver 89 wants to know, are there any circumstances where a death doula could face legal repercussions? And are there legal protections available to death doulas?
Yes, there are legal protections available for death doulas. There is insurance particularly to support us and to cover our butts while we're out there working. There's a couple of companies that do it, but important to research in your area what type of protection that might be available. Also, there's a couple of lines that I don't cross when I'm working with people that are dying. More often than not, it has to do with the medical care. When the family needs something when there's something happening with the body and they're unsure about what's happening, my answer is almost always, what has your doctor said? Because I am not dispensing any medical advice. I don't have any. I'm not a doctor. I'm not trained. I do understand signs of dying. I can definitely understand. I can recognize the death rattle. I can tell when the color of the pee changes that the kidneys are failing. Yet it's not my role to give the family the information unless it's very clear and they've heard it before or they're curious about what it is, and I might say. But overall, I stay out of the medicine. I don't give medication, for instance. That's a line that I try not to cross.
Because funeral homes sort of have a lot more legal protections generally because they are like institutions. How would you say end of life planning through a service like yours, for example, really differs from pre-planning at a funeral home?
It's a lot more in depth. We go into the nitty-gritty about your bank accounts and who's listed on them and what's in them. Is there a safe? Do you have a safe deposit box? What's in those places? Where's your storage unit? What's the combination lock? We go through all of the stuff to make sure that all of the affairs are in order. A lot of times when I work with funeral homes, and there is one in particular that I partner with here in LA, I do all the rest. I'll start to talk to the family about body and disposition and funeral services themselves, and then send them over to the funeral home. They'll complete that bit, and then the funeral home will send them right back to me so we can do everything else, because it's a small part of the pre-planning services that's necessary.
A very important part about end-of-life planning involves final disposition choices of your body and of your loved one's body at the time of death, and also the funeral service or memorial service that may follow after. So on that note, we have Heidi Sexton, who wants to know, how can one find funeral providers that are progressive when living in a regressive state, Indiana? How can one ensure that our final wishes will be honored? And for the record, it says Indiana, thumbs down. I'm not ranting on Indiana
at all. Yeah.
Go Indiana. Except for those that think thumbs down. I think that it's important to do your research. There isn't a clear way to do it other than just to ask questions about what types of services are available there, and also to get clear on a bunch of things. Perhaps if you're somebody who doesn't want to be embalmed, make sure that you're not picking a funeral home that's going to make embalming necessary no matter what you're doing. Or get very clear on what your desires are. If you definitely don't want a viewing, don't go with the funeral home that's going to have you get embalmed whether or not you're having a viewing. Ask a lot of questions. Do your internet research. You can also get a very clear plan written. And granted, parts of it are not legally binding, but if you can be as clear as possible, what I find generally is that family members and loved ones will do their best to make sure that your wishes are honored. And save some money for it, so that people don't also have to try to come out of pocket to honor your wishes, because that's something that's also going to get challenging.
And that, goes back, of course, to end-of-life planning, that you have to sort of do that research in your area before, so that that, let's say you've set out a plan with your family, that there's a provider there that's actually going to be able to carry it through in the manner that you want. So doing the end-of-life planning and figuring out who's going to take care of that is really important to begin with, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I worked with a family recently, and the mom really wants a green burial, but there aren't any green burial locations or sites in like a 500-mile radius. Yeah. And so she's planning to save a lot of money so they can transport her body to a green burial site in another state, because she's that serious about it. I also suggest that she goes back and check the end-of-life plan every year or so, see if something new has popped up, so that maybe she doesn't have to make sure their body gets shipped 2 states away.